Hello there. I want to start this off with some exposition about my experiences with Sonic before getting into the weeds of plot and character interaction and all, so bear with me for just a second. I am a jaded Sonic fan.
No way!
I haven't played most of the newer games, and my memory for the ones that I have played is hazy at best at times. Most of the time, I watch friends play them or big content creators instead, and while I definitely feel left out at times, I really wanted to wear Hog, but I couldn't afford with the freaky other kart racer that curse you Mario. Anyways, sorry about that. Point is, I do feel left out at times, but I still am a Sonic fan at heart, and I always still manage to have fun. Whether that be just rocking out to the music, as Sonic rarely ever misses there. I mean, look at freaking Frontiers. Or just bantering with friends about designs and character arcs, and those specifically. My favorite and most hated characters always come up. And in that conversation, there is one. A paradoxical oxymoronic loop of a character who has my favorite design out of all of Sonic, yet my most hated execution. Silver the Hedgehog, who never had a chance to truly succeed. And it hurt. Until recently, that is. Thanks to a line from Crossworlds leaking early, and then, of course, the full game after, something happened. I'm sure if you're watching this, you don't need me to tell you what, but Cornar on Twitter did something that sent ripples across the entire fan base. Fan games went into the works, music was made as concepts, and people just had hope. Hope for a character who was doomed to failure thanks to the game he was from. Yet, out of all the things that were set in motion, a true, proper story, a genuine take on what happened, never was one of them. At least until a bit before I started writing down more of this, and a few days ago now, or a week or so by the time you're probably seeing this, Gurfdus on YouTube, Gurfdus Gaming, made an excellent video that you all should definitely check out. Link will be in the description, but aside from that specifically, there's been no real stories, and even with that video, that one doesn't go too heavy into story territory. What I wanted was something more like, say, calling out another great YouTuber who you should definitely check out here, Pumpkin Swift's takes on their What If AUs. And so I decided to take up this mantle and set upon writing Silver the Hedgehog, the game. Before we truly begin, now that we have all the initial setup for why I'm doing all this is laid out and all, I just want to preface some few things here and there. Firstly, this game, unlike some ideas I've seen people throw around at all, will be in Silver's time, 200 years in the future, separated but connected to the grander Sonic storyline and timeline. With the only instance of time travel being a very important one that will be touched upon. There will only be one, no more, no less. On top of this, we will not be retconning IDW's ending for Silver. Rather, yeah, you'll see when we start. But yeah. Also, on any art, on any music, on anything that I have found, that I have used in this video, that isn't just like generic renders of the characters online, you will find links to them down below in the description. This is a fan project made by a fan for fans. Every fan needs shouted out who made this project possible, even if they didn't even touch it. Next, if anyone at SEGA or Sonic Team somehow, by some miracle, manages to watch this video and become even slightly inspired for an official project, I will give you full liberties, even if asked in writing, for you to take any idea used in this story for your own, if not the whole thing. This may be a fan's fiction spawned from some fan art from a line from a game you've all released, but I above all just want to see Sonic thrive, even if that means my ideas are used for official products without paying me a cent, just a special thanks in the credits at most, if even that. This also goes for fan projects too, but I would prefer proper credits there, because this is a fan doing fan things and fans sort of need to stick together, so yeah, you get where I'm coming from with there at least. But with that out of the way, I mean, there's nothing left to do but let's get started. It began as a reoccurring nightmare. Evilus, the destroyed world, Mephiles and his manipulations, Blaze sacrificing herself, even something far, far greater forming. And then it was gone. Silver woke up once again to a bright sunny day in his futuristic home. Again, seems it won't ever go away, but at least it's over. He looked over to the light blue emerald on his desk before walking over and looking out his window, smiling. He had always had these nightmares, almost as if they had actually happened, yet he couldn't quite place when. But that was in the past, whenever it was. He could hear birds chirping and children playing. A dove flew past his window. He was at peace. Then it happened. It was as if the world began to glitch, as if it was a hologram fading out. Silver looked around in a panic as he saw the reality that he earned break. The voices of the other kids playing in the distance vanished, not as if they stopped, but like they were never there. The sky clouded itself a deep brown smog. The buildings changed into glitched ruins, part of the present Silver knew, still clinging on somehow. And then Silver merely blinked, yet everything had changed. Memories of a past he had never had came flooding in, of his parents pushing him away from some egg-shaped machine, of him fighting the Chaos Emerald once housed in his room, locked away in a factory, unable to steal it as egg ponds flooded from all sides, of the world being desolate save for sparse areas of mutating greenery and polluted waters. He was no longer in his room, but in a cave, looking out at a wasteland. In the distance, he saw it. A sprawling metropolis, more electrical than even his city was. What's going on? He tried his best to figure out what was going on, but his head panged with the memories again. This isn't right. He slammed his hand into the cave wall, his memories of his future and of the nightmare still there. My world. This isn't the world I fought to save from. He trailed off, looking at the city, seeing the face of the structure. He couldn't make it out, but it reminded him of someone. Reminded him of the nightmare somehow. Silver was silent. He was unable to process what had happened. But he knew he couldn't just stay here. So he began his journey through the sand hill zone. Running and flying through the wasteland towards the city far, far in the distance, robots tried to stop him. Each time one was destroyed, Silver couldn't help but notice that an emaciated animal popped out. Until finally, after so long, he reached the outskirts and was stopped by a machine. It had a robotic facsimile of a man inside and threw spiked metal balls at the Hedgehog, who used his powers to push back into the machine. It crashed, and a digitized voice he recognized came out from it. "Oh ho ho! I didn't expect to see another Hedgehog destroying my old works!" Silver was stunned as he finally realized what was going on. "Eggman, you're behind all this?" "Huh? It seems you must be new to things around here." Silver tensed his fist. The robot was close to malfunctioning, so he tried to ask a question. How? How are you here? How are you alive?" The mad scientist's voice rang out in laughter one last time as it sputtered out. The robot was not going to be providing even another quip. Silver knew that all the answers he could ever want laid within the city, but he also knew that going there was a death trap. The fact that Eggman was behind all this frustrated him to no end. In his mind, he began to put the pieces together finally. The nightmare. He finally remembered more of it now. It was no longer a haze per se, but an actual time that had happened. That he had overwritten. And now, just like before, it's been changed once again. "I must fix this. I must put a stop to whatever Eggman has done." With that, Silver darts off to the city. The shot lingers on the wind, slowly panning to a hooded figure from far behind him. They say as they slowly walk away with the screen fading to black. We fade back to Silver reaching a cliff overlooking the bottom of the city, taken aback by what he saw. The bottom of the structure was full of a viscous liquid, clearly harmful as it deteriorated everything around it, while the towering struts shooting out of it led to a metropolis he had never seen before. Eggman's face was plastered across the place, though sputtering holograms and rusting metal showed the way of the city. And there, at an entrance with no path, was a neon sign in disrepair saying, "Welcome to Neo-Eggman Land, seat of the Eggman Empire." He could easily use his telekinesis to fly to the rusting door, but Silver didn't feel inclined to even approach it. Machines could be heard in the distance, and it was clear a direct approach wouldn't be possible to do given how advanced the place was. Even should he somehow use all his power to float to the entrance and fight his way around the city, he would be too worn out to handle what threats surely await him upon breaking in. He needed to weaken the city, or find people who could weaken it with him. Then he remembered, flashing in, the factory. There was a chaos emerald in it. The memories, they were coming back. The new memories. The Chaos Emerald in the factory was the same one that used to be in his house. He remembered now, and it had to be somewhere nearby. He began searching, looking around, before finally... It was a broken supply chain, a line that had fell into the mire below, disintegrating slowly. But the path had still been laid out, and following towards it, he had seen a factory. "That must be it," he muttered aloud and darted off to Projection Productions. The entire factory, while littered with a decent amount of badniks, was a maze of holograms and projections. Some holographic obstacles in his path, or even projections of robots themselves, while others were of Eggman in his prime, giving orders about how each Bagnik should be designed and how the animals would be safe and secure piloting them. I knew the doctor was depraved, but I never realized just how far he'd go. He muttered this as he finally closed in on the emerald, seeing its light blue gleam through corridors and reaching the core of the facility that housed it. He slowly walked into the center of the room, a boiling magma pit below a metal grating floor as the jewel rested in the maw of a machine in the center, sucking its power presumably for the entire plant. The light blue hue was fading, but was still there after all this time and abuse from Eggman's machine. He began to walk up to it before a mechanical monstrosity landed in front of him, smashing down. The egg mantis, mandibles and claws made for ripping through metal and destroying all who oppose it. A feminine voice rings out from it. "Intruder located. Initiating removal of obstacles to the Empire." Silver struggled. There was no obvious weakness and nothing he could throw at it, until it drove its claws at him from above, opening the bubbling fluids below. It slid off the mech without harm, but it broke up scrap sharp enough for Silver to use his telekinesis to throw and pierce the mech's durable skin. After that, the floor began to become unstable, and the egg mantis began to launch missiles as last-ditch effort, only for Silver to launch them back with his powers, wrecking the machine completely. "Critical error committed. Recalibrating." The feminine voice seemed perplexed more than angered. "Now's my chance!" Silver roared out, landing on the machine with the emerald and using all his strength and his telekinesis power to rip the Chaos Emerald from its grasp. Sirens and alarms immediately rang out. "It would seem that this facility has entered meltdown, and that this robot has failed at its purpose. Initiating self-destruction in 10, 9... Silver panicked. He didn't see a clear way out and was already exhausted from the fight. Quickly, he used the last of his strength to take a chance, flying towards where the egg mantis had broken into the room from, but not seeing the outside or knowing how far he'd need to go to get to it. He flew with all his might, but as he did, he heard the explosion go off. He knew he wasn't going to make it. It was a red and black flash grabbing him faster than he could ever be. The lifeform pulled Silver far out of the way before stopping at a close-by cave as he watched the facility go up in a mushroom cloud, hood still covering his identity. Silver saw him, though. He saw who was beneath the hood. Is that really you, Shadow?" He stood motionless, unresponsive. "Shadow, please, you have to help me. I was in my home when—" "Quiet." His brooding tone was serious enough to give Silver pause. He soon saw why as flying drones started swarming around, missing the cave but barely. After a couple minutes of silence, he finally spoke again. "How do you know me?" He still was looking out, keeping watch. I remember that my whole world was destroyed. Being tricked and fighting you. It's all still hazy, but I remember you, Shadow." Shadow let out a hump before loosening up. "I was in my home. Life was perfect. And then Eggman changed the timeline, I presume." Shadow cut him off with the truth. "So you know what happened?" "I was there when—" Before Shadow could continue, he bent to a knee and clutched his head in immense pain, finally falling against the cave wall to see him. His face was scarred, his right eye being covered with a rugged patch that showed a void through some holes. And the pain from using his powers to save Silver clearly hurt him. Silver looked stunned before finally asking, "What happened?" After a moment, Shadow finally eased up from the pain to simply say, "We don't have time for this right now. You need to get somewhere safe. She knows you're after the Chaos Emeralds now. Hiding is the only way to survive." Shadow sounded almost somber, as if this exact situation had happened before. "No, this isn't like you. What happened, Shadow? You used to be so much more confident." Shadow merely glared at Silver, gaze piercing into the soul of the child. In truth, Shadow didn't know how Silver knew all this, or who Silver truly was, but he was furious at the notion, given all he's been through. Silver wasn't going to get an answer, clearly. "If you know what's good for you, then run and hide. There is no hope for saving this world anymore." Shadow looked down before standing up and dashing off at speeds Silver could never hope to match, let alone one of the Doctor's mechs. With that, Shadow was gone, just like the hope of the ultimate life form once had. But Silver, looking at the Chaos Emerald next to him, still had that hope. "You may have lost your hope, but I will never stop fighting for my world, my future." Silver now knew what needed to be done, finding the other 6 Chaos Emeralds. The big question was, where were they? Silver, escaping now to behind where he first saw the city, had found an ancient forest lost to time, though calling it that would be an understatement. It was brown and dying, yet flourishing in colors and still alive, even if only barely, hanging on by a thread. Silver marveled at the sight, but also couldn't help but wonder what the place could have been. The mired marsh was surviving somehow. Eggman's robot seemingly absent from the place, and instead it seemed more like the animals and even the water wanted to harm him, poisoned or carnivorous. After barreling through obstacles and hazards, one after another, each trying to kill him, he finally landed in the middle of a mired swamp in the center of the decaying jungle. He was taking a breather when finally something began to stir under the water beneath the lily pad he was on. It was a metallic claw, one that looked rusted over, trying to attack Silver. He dodges, but soon the full scope of the mech emerges. The rusty egg Venus emerged and began to spew the same toxins polluting the water at Silver. Given the lack of Eggman's presence before this, the machine's presence gave Silver pause. This pause only amplifies as cackling comes from the machine. It was Eggman. "I see you're tenacious, but let's see how you handle the ingenuity to last centuries." The egg Venus was formidable, spewing pearl bubbles of toxin and geysers of poison, purposely polluting the platforms to limit Silver's movement. But some of the bubbles are more solid, almost like actual pearls from the poison hardening over the years of sitting and being unused. Using his telekinesis, he throws these hardened bubbles back into the robot's maw as it charges up its polluted spray, damaging the robot more and more until finally it collapses too into the lily pads, and for Silver to deliver a final blow. After some more sputtering, Eggman's voice rings out of the barely functioning machine. "Remarkable! That such a power exists is quite the sight to behold." Silver tensed up, furious that Eggman was praising him when he ruined this world, ruined Silver's world. "Why did you do all this, you rotten egg? And how are you even still alive after all this time?" Eggman's laughter rings out at the question once again. "You haven't figured it out yet? No matter. With this data, she'll be most pleased." Silver was perplexed. This isn't the first time he's heard of a she in reference to this dark future, flashing back to Shadow saying that as she knew he was after the Chaos Emeralds. Attempting to get answers, he finally asked again, "What do you mean she? Who are you talking about?" Eggman merely laughed before cutting out. The machine shut down. He was so close, yet so far. Silver was frustrated, seeing as he still lacked any real answers, but before he could leave, he saw a glint in the polluted water, a glint turning to a purple glow as the pollution began to recede. No, not recede. It was being completely cured. Finally, the water was crystal clear. Insects and frogs began hopping around and out from the woodwork of the mired marsh. Finally, Silver saw what was causing the glow, causing the mired marsh to become a forest once again. Using his telekinesis, he removed the purple Chaos Emerald from the core of the now busted, rusty machine. With that, he had the light blue and purple Chaos Emeralds now in his possession, and he could use their powers, if they were fully powered, that is. Both were dimmed after all the years that had passed, not to mention the abuse from Eggman's machines. He didn't exactly know, but he hoped their energies would return in time. Silver left the marsh, some sparse greenery finally returning to the wasteland around it as he did, and now he went further into the distance, far from Neo Eggman Land. He found dried out oceans turned to wastelands, sparse pockets of water with wildlife sprinkled throughout, until he finally found some sort of island. A ruined city populated it, but no life on it anymore, only more of Eggman's pawns and badniks. Floating and breaking his way through the city, though, he finally sees something that gives him an indication of where he is, as in the center of the sprawling city, he finds a ruined cafe. The name Soliana appears on a decrepit sign. Suddenly, pangs ripple through Silver's head as he realized where he was, as the memories came rushing back, as he remembered everything. Sonic, Tails, Amy, Blaze, even Mephiles. There was no haze to what happened left. Yet, something felt off. He looked around some more, sensing something off, before finally seeing a topaz gem lying on the ground, as if placed there. Silver realized it was another Chaos Emerald, and this one looked in pristine condition. He picked it up and felt into its energy, but it felt off. Silver looked around once more again to see something. A terminal, not of Eggman's make. Maybe this has some information on what truly happened. Silver tried to turn it on, only to realize it had no power. Frustrated, he looked around and found a place to insert a power source. Realizing what he needed to do, he put the yellow emerald he found into the machine, and to his surprise, a video started playing on the terminal screen. It was Tails, though he looked scared, distraught. Explosions could be seen in the background as he spoke. "To anyone watching this, Eggman has gone too far this time." Static began to plague the rest of the recording, but it kept playing. "After using and capture, he's begun to conquer the whole world. I have a fake Chaos Emerald, but won't be enough to fool him, but it still is powerful enough to..." Suddenly, the screen cuts out. Silver had gotten enough information from the terminal to realize what had happened. So Tails left this behind. He didn't even have time to hide it, it seems. He swung his fist down onto the terminal in frustration, knowing someone he knew from the past had been unable to escape man. He went to open the power source back up, but the screen blipped back on. However, it wasn't Tails this time. In fact, it was still static, and it sounded like a group of people, actually. "Sharby, is this thing on yet?" The brutish, goofy voice of a crocodile ringed through the fuzzy feed. Hold on, Vector. It should be only picking up audio at the moment. That should be fine, though we should be quick before more of Eggman's robots arrive. My arts as a ninja do little when in the open. I'm with Ezio. Let's just get this message. It was clear that this was a colorful bunch of characters, but Silver at least wanted to hear them out. We were sent on one final job to hide the real Chaos Emerald for Tails in the city. If you're the South Bell Tower, after that you should see it shining from to the north. Vector then took a more somber tone. We've done all we can for the time being. We just hope that whoever finds this message can do something to save the world. We tried our best, but without... There's a long silence and buzzing before finally the feed cuts out. With that, Silver ejects the fake emerald and listens to the instructions that he was given. Making his way above the ruins of what remained of what he could only assume was the southernmost bell tower, he did see a yellow shine in the far distance, in a cave. He made his way over to what used to be water but was now a wasteland and climbed inside to find a mirror shining from something below. It was a ravine, ruined structures, and a makeshift laboratory littering the surroundings. He walked into the lab with the emerald in a secure tube. Silver looked around and found a terminal to open it. The designs of everything being the same as the terminal in Soliana. Tails clearly made this place before. Well, it didn't matter now. After using the barely functioning terminal to open it up, he went to grab the Chaos Emerald only for it to be snatched in a blink of an eye. I can't let you do that, you meddlesome runt. Not after the last one. Eggman's voice boomed out from behind him. He swiftly turned to see a metal hedgehog, one not unlike Sonic, but much different. Spikier, more armored, silver and pristine. Clearly what you need is to be bested by my last great creation. Behold, Mechasonic Mark IV. Silver clashed against the metallic abomination of spikes and spin dashes, but it was no use in a head-on-head. The plating was pristine as platinum, and nothing he was doing even scratched it. That was until Silver saw something in the lab, a switch to a tube. He didn't exactly know what it'd do, but he hoped it would at least cause something to deal damage. He lured the robot towards the tube before activating the lever with his telekinesis, causing an immense wave of a freezing liquid to shoot out, limiting the robot's movements as it did. Now Silver could properly think against the Mark IV and, more importantly, find ways to hit it, using metal boxes across the room to hit it while it was in its slowed state, damaging it barely more and more until finally it came to a stop for a moment. Grr, you meddlesome hedgehog! And here I thought that your kind was wiped out with her upgrades. Silver paused in confusion and anger, finally starting a conversation to get answers with the Mad Doctor. What upgrades? To who? Why did you change the future? And how are you still alive after 200 years passed by? Silver's frustration, annoyance, and confusion had finally made Eggman give in. Life exists in many forms, my boy. When my time was coming to a close, my loyal, perfect daughter used her powers to make me like her, uploading my genius self to a databank in our empire. Silver was confused. Daughter? Eggman's iconic laughter burst through the room before finally the robot began to activate a jetpack to leave. It seems you have no chance of keeping up if you don't even know that much. Though I do admire your tenacity, and for leading me to one of the Chaos Emeralds. No, wait! Silver tried to reach out, using his powers to yank the machine down, but the jetpack was too strong and the metal too resistant. He couldn't do it. The Mark IV was getting away. And then Shadow struck it down, to the ground once more. I told you to stop, kid. Silver's face went to a gleeful, almost tearful joy seeing the ultimate life form arrive to help. Shadow! So you're alive. I figured that you died after trying to save Sonic, but I suppose I should have expected more from my grandfather's ultimate life form. Eggman's annoyance scratching Shadow's ears. The two prepared to continue the fight before finally Eggman's laughter burst through once more. Well, I'd love to stay and finish you two off for good. This emerald will be the key to finishing one final creation. Ta-ta! With that, time shifted. Chaos control. The Mark IV was gone. Shadow and Silver remained in the ruined lab alone, with only themselves. Now do you see what you've done? You should have just hid, kid. This world is gone. Shadow turned around, annoyed and furious. I won't run away. I'll never turn my back on this world, on my world, on the world I won. I will restore it to the world I knew, even if that means going up against unbeatable odds. Shadow stood silently. The words struck a chord with him. You sound too similar to that faker. At this point, it's too late, though. There's no fixing things. Even so, I will fight. Shadow looked down, almost somberly. They stood there in silence until finally Silver asked the question he had since the timeline shifted. What happened? What happened to you? To Sonic? What did Eggman do? Shadow tensed up, clenching his fist, not wanting to talk about it. But there was just no reason he could think to just run away and ignore the kid anymore. He was going to keep going for the Chaos Emeralds anyway. He might as well know the past. And so Shadow regaled Silver with the flashback. It was an attack on Angel Island. We presumed another attempt to steal the Master Emerald was all it was, and we weren't entirely wrong. The Doctor sent his whole fleet to it, and at first we were winning. Me and that blue faker taking out airship after airship, and Knuckles successfully protecting the Emerald. Sonic was finally about to knock some sense into the Doctor, and then Shadow and Silver lingered in a long silence as the image panged in Shadow's mind of Sonic being contained in a flash of light. It was an unbreakable prison. Even chaos control was ineffective. Sonic was gone, and in my attempts to break him out, he covered the patch over his eye. Silver understood now what happened. And what of the Master Emerald? Where did Eggman take it to? Shadow scoffed. He didn't take it anywhere. He transformed the island, and with the help of that daughter of his, activated the Master Emerald's power. Everything after that. He looked up off into the distance. Silver finally realized what Neo Eggman Land was. Angel Island, corrupted and roboticized by Eggman. A long silence took hold before finally Silver decided to ask one final question. Who is Eggman's daughter, and why is she so powerful? Shadow seemed genuinely perplexed at the question, turning back around to face the Silver Hedgehog. You really don't know? Silver shook his head. He never had one in the past I was sent to. Shadow finally accepted that Silver was too lost to truly know what happened without some help. Originally, Sage had been nothing more than an AI for Eggman to use to learn about an ancient race. Then he grew attached, and finally on that fateful day he unveiled her newest upgrade, and now she's the current ruler of the Eggman Empire, Neo Sage. Finally, Silver knew what had happened. He still had other questions, but Shadow began to walk off. I'll say it once more. Hide. She is too strong for you. too strong for me. There is no winning against her. With that, Shadow darted off faster than Silver could react. Not that it mattered now. Silver was lost in thought for a while after this conversation before continuing his journey, eventually finding a palace in the dried oceans he was exploring. The aquatic temple was full of beings he didn't recognize, watery in origin, along with some aggressive wildlife. Remains of egg ponds covered in moss and algae littered the area, clearly from some long time ago, but they would have had to have been launched off into the water when it was still here, when it was still an ocean. Silver explored the palace to find yet another emerald at the end, next to a destroyed Hedgehog. This seemed placed here, the green glow feeling out of place in the environment. Silver walked forward hesitantly and began to pick it up, only for it to sink into the floor into a metal goop. Instantly, Silver entered a fighting stance and prepared for a showdown. Metallic laughter rang out before the ruined Hedgehog itself sank into the goop and merged with the puddle. Now laying in front of Silver was a large body of metal liquid, and out from the center formed something similar to Sonic. It wasn't Sonic though. It was sharper, spikier, and very powerful. I thought only the Eggman Empire would come for me, he chuckled maniacally in his metal voice, puddle rippling as he did. And here I thought I'd only be dealing with them myself as well. The robot examined his opponent, tilting his head and began beeping in what Silver could only describe as confusion. You are not my inferior copy. Silver realized in this moment what he was dealing with. Wait, did Eggman create you too? Here I thought his creations were subservient. The robot scoffed and beeped loudly at the name. My foolish creator downgraded me once before and tried to eliminate me once I became a threat once again. I will not let him do so, and I will prove myself as the ultimate Sonic. With a surge of energy, Neo Metal Sonic merged with the puddle once more, becoming a metal falcon. The mech was similar to the Hedgehog, but sleek, faster, sharper, and more importantly, firing lasers and lightning blasts instead of bullets and missiles. Silver struggled to dodge the attacks as they came at him, the spinning machine firing on all cylinders with each attack, destroying bricks and pillars from around him. Silver, seeing an opportunity, used these broken rocks to slam into the core of the metal monstrosity, however. Eventually, Neo Metal emerged from the top of the machine, realizing what was going on, and deciding to fight fire with fire. I am the ultimate being. I will destroy all opposition. He began using his own powers to throw metal scrap of egg ponds and magnets at Silver, distracting him as both lasers and lightning struck. But Silver kept up the fight until finally he damaged Neo Metal Sonic to the point of collapsing, defeating the metal monstrosity. However, Neo Metal Sonic wasn't destroyed. Sputtering, he stood up, trying to attack again, but Silver used his telekinesis to halt him, causing Metal to finally relent. I must become the true Sonic. Silver frowned, but didn't fight back anymore. Maybe one day, if you stop this, you could prove a friend. Silver let go of his powers, releasing Neo Metal Sonic in the process. He was only looking down in defeat, beeping, but no words were being emitted now. Hand over the Chaos Emerald. It's clear we both want to take down the Eggman Empire. The machine stood quiet, the sound of rubble falling as the ruins finally began to buckle from their battle. Silver, now panicking, hopped onto the destroyed Metal Falcon to Neo Metal Sonic's side. We have to get out of here. You can still help. Your powers could take down... Neo Metal cut him off. Objective failed. Sonic defeated by Eggman. Final plan foiled by unforeseen circumstances. My purpose is gone. My survival is unnecessary. Silver, frustrated and annoyed, yet the optimistic kid he is, didn't care. He used his powers to grab Neo Metal and wrap him around his shoulders. He then used the same powers to try and alleviate his own weight too, speeding through the collapsing ruins of the Ocean Palace, barely making it out and collapsing on the ground as he did, with Neo Metal not saying a word. Night came, though with the pollution it was hard to tell, and Silver used what little wood he could to start a fire. Metal was still on the ground, not that he needed warmth or any mortal need. The emerald gave him more than enough power to act, yet he did nothing. You know, Sonic might still be alive. Your purpose isn't entirely lost. Neo Metal didn't budge, clearly active, but just thinking. Silver grabbed a fish from a pond left from the ocean with his powers and began cooking it over the flame. You could still have a purpose of your own. Not just fighting Sonic or Eggman, but being more than what you were made for. The silence remained unbroken until Silver's munching on the cooked fish took it away. Not helped by how he quickly realized it was too hot and needed to be cooled down. Silver kept talking, attempt after attempt, until finally Silver called it a night. He gave Neo Metal his own blanket that he made out of the moss, in spite of not needing one. Then Silver slept for the first time since everything had happened. When he awoke, Neo Metal was standing again, looking off in the distance. Silver smiled in spite of the battle they had. Morning. Hope you slept well. Probably can't sleep, but... Silence was still the norm with Metal, his cold, calculating circuits refusing to output words. Silver looked now to where Neo Metal was seeing Neo Eggman land in the far, far distance, barely visible. Still thinking on ways to surpass them, huh? Neo Metal Sonic's eyes blinked, his digital response to this seemingly being a yes with it. If you join me, you can defeat them. Maybe not on your own, sure, but we can defeat Eggman and Neo Sage as a group. How does that sound? He turned his head, beeps emitting as he stared into Silver's soul. Finally, the machine spoke again. Why would a being that has surpassed me require my assistance? Silver merely shook his head, smile growing wide and wry. Well, doing things as a team is a lot easier than taking on the whole world all alone. And besides, you're a great fighter. Silver rambled about the fight, but Metal toned him out, instead shifting through his memory banks. Eggman scrubbed most of his memories in the reprogramming of the original becoming of Neo Metal Sonic, yet those memories still remain somewhere in the code. It's how he accessed the tools to become Neo Metal Sonic again when he escaped, and now he is accessing those same memories to remember how he was defeated. Teamwork. The Chaotix, Team Rose, Team Dark, and most infuriating to Metal, Team Sonic. Yet, now he realized why he lost. Truly. No one being could ever be strong enough to take on the strongest below them in a group. Calculating. Calibrating logistics. Silver stood confused for a moment, but he had faith. They weren't at least trying to destroy each other anymore, which was proof to Silver that he made some progress. Proposal request. Mutual alliance against all under the Robotnik banner, an ideal directive. Silver smiled and closed his eyes, grabbing Metal's hand. Metal looked down, processing the interaction before slightly shaking it tightly. Now, especially with a third Chaos Emerald. Oh, wait, can I have that? Silver reached out pleading to the machine. I will retain the Chaos Emerald. Its power is needed for me to retain my current form. Silver nodded, accepting the terms, but there was a sense of dejection in his mind from it. Now we just have to get the other four. Eggman has at least one, and the Master Emerald. Do you have any idea where the rest could be? Neo Metal Sonic began scanning the surroundings before finally responding. Chaos Emeralds located. Pinpointing locations. Silver looked around while Neo Metal scanned the surroundings and noticed something in the distance. He couldn't make it out, but he had a feeling he already knew what it was. As soon as he realized, though, Shadow darted off. Still hiding, huh? Before Silver could think on it more, Neo Metal finally responded. Nearest Chaos Emerald outside of Eggman Land would be in the ruins of the Far East. Approximate travel time, 3 days. 3 days? Why does everything have to be so far? Silver slouched, almost dejected, but he still took the mission in stride, just wishing he had the speed Sonic and Shadow did. And so they crossed the former oceans towards the destination that they were heading to, arriving early, in fact, in the middle of the night of the second day of travel. They approached the ruins of the once great land, now dried up and empty, and full of Eggman's robots. The egg ponds seemed more designed here, more armor and weapons than normal, presumably to bring this once great nation to heel. Now all that remained was worm wreckage in the land. Silver took to the high road, focusing on the flying threats and scouting for the emerald, while Neo Metal traversed the ground, crushing all opposition and forcing his way to find the gem. The two were a dynamic duo in the end, with Silver's telekinesis and Metal's manipulation. The main difference was how they used their power, one being more for manipulating how one moved, and the other using it to destroy all in their wake. In the end, though, the search was as fast as if Sonic was still here, and Silver slowly started to realize this fact in the end. Converging to finish off one final wave of Eggman's minions, the two had made it to a tower that was looming overhead, one of the only structures untouched by the devastation and seemingly even Eggman's forces. Another Chaos Emerald is detected to be within the domicile in front of us. Proceed with extreme caution. Silver perked up in confusion hearing that. Surely it won't be that guarded, right? Metal stood silent, unmoving, as if he knew or sensed something Silver didn't. Silver slowly went grim as he realized how serious the machine was, before finally taking the first steps and opening the doors to the tower. The ruby Chaos Emerald was there, suspended in the air, hanging from ropes covered in protective charms and talismans. Clearly, whatever reasons the people or person who did this had were good ones. Silver carefully looked around, silence eerily filling the building as no candle made a crackle, and it seemed as if the wind stood still. Finally, he used his power to tug at the emerald. Immediately upon doing so, Neo Metal darted in and screamed at Silver. There is another Chaos Emerald approaching! Prepare for battle! Suddenly, before Silver even had time to properly process anything beyond Neo Metal darting in, bullets riddled the walls. Silver barely was able to grab the jewel and duck to cover. Neo Metal, meanwhile, fought against the assailant. However, their aim was immaculate and struck them down. Neo Metal dropping behind a half wall. He wasn't destroyed or trashed, but he definitely took some major damage. Silver watched as the assailant finally revealed themselves through the smoke of the bullets. The red, black, and yellow bot clearly was Eggman's creation. Yet it wasn't like the rest of the Badniks war bots he's faced so far. Must prevent enemy acquisition of Chaos Emeralds, engaging in lethal force. The robot was clearly wanting the fight, but was trying to prevent anyone from getting the Chaos Emeralds. It seems I alerted it by going for the Chaos Emerald. The robot turned, hearing Silver's voice, pointing his chain gun arm right at Silver, revving up and firing as Silver used his powers to catch the bullets. Wait, we don't have to fight! The robot merely turned the other arm into another chain gun in response. Okay, or maybe we do. Silver let out a heavy sigh before the battle truly began. With Neo Metal down, it took all of Silver's strength to try and fight against the robot, having to time his telekinesis to reflect the bullets right back at him, barely scathing him as he did. However, the bullets broke pieces of the building that were able to be used against it as well. Eventually, even the roof broke under the pressure of their battle, and Silver started throwing support beams that were no longer supporting anything, and parts of the falling ceiling, until finally the bot went down on a knee. After a moment of beeps, it spoke. Critical damage taken. Retreat invalid. Initiating self-destruct sequence. Silver went to try and stop him, screaming, "Wait! Please!" in horror as he realized this could be too devastating to survive, but another voice rang out. Omega, stop. Both Silver and Omega turned to see Shadow standing on one of the interior ledges of the building. You two really don't know when to quit. Silver had never really met Omega, but now hearing the name, the design does look similar to one from the Nightmare. Shadow hopped down and began walking towards Omega. Hand them the emerald, Omega. You can trust them. Neo Metal finally got up, seeing the ultimate life form and verbally scoffing with his digitized voice. Shadow merely gave him a glance before continuing. They're only missing two now with this. See, I told you we wouldn't lose hope. Silver's rebuke was short-lived. Hey, Faker, why didn't you tell him where the other two Chaos Emeralds are to shatter his confidence? Neo Metal tensed in rage hearing it, emitting another scoff, but accepted a request from Shadow after a moment to collect his emotional data banks. Both remaining Chaos Emeralds are in sight of Neo Eggman Land. Silver's smile faded hearing this, but he still kept a determined look. Then it's finally time. No, it isn't, you fool. You'll only get yourself captured, or worse. Shadow clenched his fist tight enough to vibrate his inhibitor rings. You seem to remember some of your time experiencing whatever happened 200 years ago. Do you remember another hedgehog by the name of Amy? Silver nodded, his face confused as he worried where this was going. She went in after Sonic not long after it was made, unable to stand what was happening. Shadow went quiet for a moment, before finally he continued. It was broadcast as a show of force by Neo Sage. Neo Metal now chimed in, realizing what this was. Her attempt at capture led to a security breach. I was set upon the girl by the AI to protect Robotnik's legacy, but saw a chance once more to ascend my data-improved form. Using her chaos, I stole my schematics and escaped. Omega finally spoke up now. Pink Hedgehog trapped in identic prison. Stasis remains unbroken. Silver perked up in shock. They're alive? They're in stasis, and the seals use the Master Emeralds as a power source. Shadow scoffed. I guess I can't hide the results of 200 years ago anymore. Shadow finally relived the memory of the day fully as it happened. When Knuckles failed to stop Neo Sage from accessing the powers of the Master Emerald, she froze Sonic in a stasis prison. He was stuck in the same pose he was as he was about to deal the finishing blow to the Eggman. And he remains in that pose now, never aging, never feeling, never thinking. Shadow felt his patch where his eye used to be, grimacing in pain. I thought I could use chaos control to break the prison, but all it broke was my eye. His hand tensed as he continued. The blast those prisons release could kill even me, the ultimate life form. There is no breaking those damn things. Shadow's tension finally peaked, him punching the support beam which broke effortlessly from the power of the rage and anger inside him. If Sonic had just been faster, if he had just landed that blow. Shadow went silent, but his regret, rage, and resentment were palpable and felt through the air and even by the two machines. Reality finally settled for Silver. Sonic and Amy weren't just trapped, they were presumably sealed permanently, and any attempt to free them would be futile. What if we had all the emeralds? Would we? Negative. Neo Metal Sonic cut Silver off before he could even get everything out. Only the destruction or nullification of that inferior AI's control on the Master Emerald could free them. Okay. So we break the emerald and the only chance we have of fixing this mess is gone. Shadow, quick to shutting down the boy, was very clearly furious. Or we could try and fail miserably to fight Neo Sage for control over the jewel and end up all perishing to their powers thanks to not having all the emeralds. If not being sealed away just like Sonic and Amy. Shadow's face grimaced. This is why I said there's no hope. To just run and hide. It's no use. The room fell silent in defeat for a long moment before finally Shadow spoke again, with his tone shifting. But now we have 5 of the 7 Chaos Emeralds. Shadow trailed off, Neo Metal Sonic realizing what he was suggesting, and Omega saying it aloud. Use all Chaos Emeralds for immense power. Use immense power to awaken Master Emerald. Use power to prevent timeline corruption. Silver perked up at that. Wait, Omega, was it? You realize the timelines changed? Affirmative. Source unclear. Master Emerald suspected culprit. Directive to protect Chaos Emerald set in response. Silver's eyes went wide. He knew what he must do. Omega, would you be willing to give me the Chaos Emerald? I have a plan. The group crossed the desolate waste one last time as Silver explained what he was thinking, all in agreement of the risk, and after days of running, they arrived at the dystopian monstrosity Eggman and Neo Sage had made. Silver and Neo Metal Sonic flew to the entrance using their powers, while Omega used his propulsion system to make it across the gap. Meanwhile, Shadow merely used Chaos Control to warp right towards the front door and kick it in before anyone else could have hoped to have made it. Alarms immediately went off as their mission began in Neo Eggman Land. Shadow took to the building, scouring for the yellow Chaos Emerald stolen by the Mechasonic Mark IV. Omega and Neo Metal, for their parts, took to the ground, destroying as much as they could and wreaking havoc on the Doctor's legacy while searching for the core of what remains of Eggman. Silver, however, flew through the destruction and the robots chasing after him straight to the core of the dystopia metropolis. He knew that if there was anywhere that the last Chaos Emerald would be, it would be with Neo Sage and the Master Emerald. Given their interactions, Shadow suggested that she would want to taunt him, just like her father once did the Blue Blur. They each fought wave after wave of badniks and egg robots, signs of Eggman, Eggman's empire, of Neo Sage, and broadcasts of the carnage all began to be destroyed in their wake along with the bots, before finally, they each hit a roadblock. Neo Metal Sonic would find himself face to face with the Mechasonic Mark IV model, realizing they now lacked the Chaos Emerald they stole from Silver in a quick clash. Inferior copy. You shall be destroyed. Neo Metal Sonic's fury was palpable for the pale imitation of his greatness, and the two began a clash that shattered entire skyscrapers to the ground, while Eggman screamed furiously to be more careful at them from the speakers, his digitized self clearly in a panic that then only got worse as he realized Omega had found his core to his digitized self. Omega didn't have a straight shot to destroy it, however. It was being guarded by something even he didn't expect. E321 Alpha. Eggman's counter to Omega after years and years of failed attempts to take down the bot. Sleek black like E101 Beta, yet with red highlights and platinum weapons consisting of chainsaws and missile launchers, all the while looking just like Omega. The inspiration was clear. Omega was forced to face his literal match. I am E321 Alpha. All attempts to destroy Master Robotnik will be foiled with my overwhelming might. Omega's sensors glared at the bot, furious in anger. I am E123 Omega. My sole purpose is to destroy Eggman and his robots. All attempts to stop me shall end in your annihilation. Prepare for destruction. Shadow, meanwhile, finally found his doppelganger while running and jumping through the city, being kicked aside into a building by a metallic boot, scorching him in the process. He got up to see it, the sleek black frame. 3 eyes, robotic in nature, peering just like Black Doom's once did, and a cape billowing just like Sonic's own metallic counterpart currently had. This wasn't some ordinary upgrade to a robot version of Shadow. This was something much more. I thought I was done having to deal with all these fakers. Shadow scoffed it out, getting to his feet as the bot floated in front of him. I am no faker, but the true ultimate metallic life form. Your extermination shall be swift, inferior model. Shadow didn't have time to react to it using Chaos Control, knocking Shadow into another building, beginning their battle as both held on to the last of the Chaos Emerald Silver needed for their plan. Clearly, this was what Eggman needed, the emerald the Mark IV stole, and now Shadow had to deal with his past one last time in a new metallic form. Both launched at each other, each connecting and countered punch, shattering glass and steel, each missed and landed kick, breaking metal. Soon, even supports under the city began to buckle, as the fight truly was the most destructive of the three, breaking down buildings just from the pure shockwaves of it all. And so the clashes continued. Omega against Alpha, Neo Metal Sonic against Mecha Sonic Mark IV, and Shadow against the supposed ultimate metallic life form. And then, in the center of the chaos, was the final confrontation. Silver, managing to make his way through the destruction as the others fought, arrived at the center of what remained of Angel Island, Master Emerald in sight, and on top of it not only lay the Silver Chaos Emerald, but also Sonic and Amy, frozen in time. He knew who awaited him, but not how she looked. As he walked up the steps to get to the emeralds, he saw her. A young woman, it looked like, glitching slightly. So someone managed to make it here. She turned around, her face looking kind. Silver knew it had to be a facade, right? He stayed silent, confidently walking up. Tell me, why do you reject my father's vision? He scrunched his face in frustration. Do you not see the utopia we have built? The future we have crafted for one and all? The greatness of the Robotnik family? Finally, in a burst of anger, Silver broke. You took my home away from me. You changed history and ruined the world, all for this small pleasure. And I am here to undo everything you've done, every life you've ruined. Finally, Sage frowned. Very well. She grew as she spoke, unveiling her true form as Neo Sage. If you will not submit to Utopia, then you too must be punished. Suddenly, screens of the other 3 battles taking place appeared in front of them. It looked like each of Silver's allies were losing. No, this isn't right. Neo Sage giggled, sounding so innocent in doing so with her more feminine voice shining through. The Ingmoon Empire is eternal, and always will be so. You cannot stop us, and never will stop us. Isn't that right, Father? Suddenly, Neo Sage's eyes went wide, her digital pupil shaking in genuine fear. Sage, take good care of yourself. Eggman's voice held genuine remorse for his created daughter as she turned to the screen to see what was happening. Omega had won his battle, now gripped into the sides of Alpha, digging into his frameworks to take both it and Eggman's database out in a self-detonation. Objective complete. No further directive needed. Peace acquired. With those final words, Omega's eyes dimmed with a genuine sense of accomplishment and peace before he detonated, and the screen went to static. Eggman truly was no more, the explosion being heard by everyone fighting, including Silver and Neo Sage. No, that can't... Father... Tears seemed to well up in her eyes at first as she choked out the words, before the sadness faded and she turned to the next screen. The ultimate metal life form was suffering a similar fate in spite of its strength, sputtering out and falling through the rubble. Shadow merely smiled before he too began collapsing into the crumbling streets unconscious, unable even to say a quip as he faded out of consciousness. As he did, the Chaos Emeralds fell from the two, and Neo Metal Sonic saw this. He darted away from his losing battle against Mecha Sonic Mark IV, the other bot relentlessly chasing Neo Metal in spite of this, and by some miracle, Neo Metal managed to grab them all. Using the power of now 3 Chaos Emeralds, Neo Metal Sonic merged with the rubble, creating a new take on Metal Abomination and destroying Mecha Sonic Mark IV with ease. Just as Neo Sage also turned to see this too. However, Metal quickly realized how unstable the form was, and more importantly, how much damage the emeralds were doing to his circuits. He didn't have long left. He reverted back to his Neo-Metal form, clutching the emeralds, and used the last of his fleeting strength to fly to Silver, dropping them behind his feet as he reverted back to his original design and powering down one final time, sparks sputtering as he did. Silver, during all this, had used Neo Sage's distracted, shocked, and emotionally distraught state to grab the final emerald from atop the Master Emerald without her noticing, now holding all 7 Chaos Emeralds in his control thanks to Neo Metal's sacrifice, and the hopes of the world he once knew on his shoulders. In spite of the Chaos Emeralds slowly dimming and losing their luster over time, they now shone to life like never before, as if brand new, as Silver channeled into them. Neo Sage, turning now to see this, turned into a crimson red and began screaming out as she started her onslaught on the Hedgehog, as Silver fought to change history once more, but for the right side this time. Silver used the power of the renewed Chaos Emeralds to enter Super Silver, something instinctual to him from the nightmare. Yet Neo Sage was no pushover even with this overwhelming might. Having full control over the entire city and the ability to grab and manipulate anything in the area, her control was truly absolute, drawing on powers of the Master Emerald to enhance her already perfected coding, and using entire buildings as hands and projectiles both, throwing vehicles, badniks, and other machines at Silver like if they were toys, and manipulating the very air to push and tug at Silver. He felt powerless, seemingly unable to do true damage as the entirety of Eggman Land collapsed around them. But he also knew he would win, and as he saw her whittling down, whether it be because of some sort of exhaustion or emotional distress, he saw a chance. Throughout the attacks, while Silver was searching for this opening, Neo Sage yelled out several sentences at her now nemesis.
You and those worthless friends of yours have taken everything from me. Our utopia is in ruins, collapsing into the earth. And my father is gone. He's actually gone. And I'll make sure you share his fate.
Silver stayed quiet, trying his best to hold on, and then Neo Sage made one major mistake. After a few minutes of dodging and surviving blow after blow, withstanding her screams and outbursts, in hit after hit, she landed on him. Silver made his move, lifting the Master Emerald with his telekinesis, fighting Neo Sage for its control. You lose, Neo Sage. You should have chosen a brighter future. The determination and confidence in the boy's voice rang like fire in the girl's sensors.
No, I won't let you do this. I will fix all this. I will stop you.
Neo Sage let out a deafening screech, tapping into the Master Emerald as Silver tapped into it as well, fighting for its control. While radiating with the power of the Chaos Emeralds, and with both of them fighting for control over the Master Emerald, they both simultaneously screamed the one thing that could cause even more chaos in this situation. Chaos. Control. Time warped and bent. Suddenly, past and present were one in this singular instant, thanks to the Master Emerald's power. And now the events of that fateful day 200 years prior were occurring at the same time as the battle in Neo Eggman Land. Knuckles, Sonic, Shadow, Eggman, Neo Sage, and everybody else at the battle that day all realized something was happening. The distraction, as if by fate, allowed Sonic to finally land the blow on Eggman he never did in the past originally. While both sages were looking at each other, they realized each other's presences and used the full power of the Master Emerald's might to combine into one, creating what could only be described as true Neo Sage. Eggman fled and screamed to his now combined daughters, I may not fully understand what's going on here, but stop them girls! Knuckles took the opportunity to wrest as much control of the Master Emerald as he could away from them, but he also then realized Silver was using it as well and began trying to aid him. With a beam of light engulfing the Hedgehog, Silver, in his super form, was now using the powers combined with that of the full might of the Master Emerald to deflect entire ships and skyscrapers both. True Neo Sage didn't stop there, however, firing energy blasts and energy beams, which Silver effortlessly dodged with his now limitless power, using the Chaos Emeralds and the Master Emerald. Thanks to True Neo Sage losing enough control from Master Emerald, the now brought to the past future Amy and Sonic have been released from their prisons and joined in. Though confused on what was going on, they at least knew they would win this fight. They all fought with their full might against True Neo Sage, barely hanging on, but trying their best to prevent her from changing the future. In the end, however, True Neo Sage never stood a chance. Eventually, Silver landed a blow so hard that it flung them into a ship, blowing the entire thing up as she pierced right through it, only to land and plant into a building from the future. The blow was so devastating that time seemed to warp and mend just from it alone, and True Neo Sage split into the two childlike forms Sage originally was. Silver returning to his time with one, the landscape changing to erase Neo Eggman Land's presence. Meanwhile, the Sage from the past was picked up by a Bagnik who'd quickly transport it to the fleeing Eggman. In the present of the games, the timeline had mended itself to see Eggman defeated again. The remnants of that bad future were being erased, and the now unconscious Sage was in her creators' arms as they made a full retreat, with the egg fleet either falling from the sky or in wreckage below Angel Island. Sonic, Shadow, Knuckles, they all commented on the time warp, and I also wondered what will happen to future versions of themselves they saw, the other Sage, and even Silver now that this was all over. Sonic specifically made a comment on Silver, however. "Seems Silver somewhat took after me. What a strange kid." Knuckles and Shadow were silent to the comment, but they were thankful for everything that happened. Sonic then proceeded to suggest lunch while Tails agreed. Knuckles declined. He needed to clean up Angel Island after all the fighting, and his mind was set on finding a successor to the Echidna's duty to guard the Master Emerald now. "This fight really showed me that even with my strength, it's not enough if the Master Emerald's going to face threats like that." Sonic shrugged, realizing Knuckles hasn't changed much deep down, but was shocked he was serious enough to find a true successor. And so, the present went on as normal. But what of the now reverted future? Now what of it? Sage sat in the grass of the desolate Angel Island, crying. With her defeat, while she was still around, even if only in her more childlike form, her father was truly gone. His legacy was gone. Everything she worked so hard for, worked so hard to preserve, to create, to improve, vanished in an instant.
He's gone. Our empire. Father.
Her tears, even digital, were heartfelt. Silver couldn't help but feel pity for her as she sobbed, and he knelt down next to her. The glow left his body as the emeralds left him finally, and he began to talk to her. "Sage, right?" She looked at him, unable to comprehend or compute what he was doing. "I know how you feel, more than anyone else right now." He chuckled before sitting down in the grass next to her. "I know this sounds crazy, but it's true. I lived in a time where this future was destroyed, where everyone I knew or loved sacrificed themselves so I could keep on living in a ruined world." Her eyes glossed with confusion and shock as her digital nature softened, stabilizing the green hues once more. "I made a deal with a demon without even realizing it to create that future, traveling back in time to make things right, only to realize that I was the one who made the outcome I fought to prevent." Silver looked up, the clouds and the blue sky making him smile. "But I fought for an absolution, for my world, for the future I wanted. And in the end, thanks to Sonic and his friends, we saved my world. This world." He looked directly to Sage now, giving off a smile reminiscent of the Blue Blur's infectious one. "Now, thanks to him, I have the same confidence they once did to save it once again, even if that meant stopping you." She spoke up finally, her digital heart weighing heavy.
But Father's future was the only one I wanted. I wanted to make him happy.
Silver cut her off. "Why don't you take a round with me? Explore this world for what it is. And maybe you could enjoy this one with me too." He offered her his hand. She looked at it for a moment, then to his face once more.
Is there even a place for me here?
The question was said in sorrow, still mourning Eggman's loss, but Silver kept his optimism. "In my world, there's a place for everyone." He reached down further to her. She finally relented and grabbed his hand as they flew off to see the future that Silver had won once again together. And with them flying off over the restored future, buildings no longer ruined or glitching, and life restored with people living life to the fullest, the credits roll, the game ending. And at the end of the credits, as a final shot plays with Silver and Sage flying off into the distance together, we pan down slowly to his shadow, looking up at them with both his eyes, glad of this future, and smiling. Good job, kid. With that, he darts off, leaving a view of a blue sky that slowly fades to black. Hello again. If you made it this far, genuinely, thank you so much. I cannot express my gratitude enough. I know it's YouTube etiquette to go, oh hey, like, share, subscribe, all that, and while I know that is beneficial for me and all, and I know you all need to for me to grow, above all, I'm just grateful you made it to the end of the video. The fact you even watched to the end of the video, even if you skip through some parts, means more than even a sub for me at this point. Thank you. Genuinely. So much. And if you do share this around and like it, do that whole hype thing that I've been hearing has been helping out, it only means more to me. I have an old Discord if you all want to chat with me at all. It's not very active, but I do want to renovate it one day, and I'll always have notifications for myself for it on, even if y'all are talking about some of the most random stuff at 5 a.m. instead of sleeping, which, granted, even I do also sometimes, so just, I don't judge. We're all human. Also, two things. First, what did you all think? Genuinely, I want to know. Put as much of your thoughts in the comments that you can. What you liked, what you didn't, any criticisms. I am only one man. I cannot write a story perfectly without creative criticism. And I've criticized myself throughout the writing process of this, but that is still only myself. So getting your all's feedback would be amazing. And then the other thing, if anyone would make a theme for this game, like a main theme or anything like that, or a credits theme or whatever, please name it either My World or World of Absolution. As that would just... Look, you gotta admit, that'd be perfect. That'd be absolutely perfect. Come on. Anyways, I hope you all have a wonderful day, night, week, rest of the year, new year, whatever, whenever you're watching this. I hope to see you all again one day. So very soon.